First 6 chapters are karma yoga, working for the, to make advancement. Middle 6 chapters are bhakti, the goal, and now we're going to Gyan, the philosophy. And so the first thing it mentions is that nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. So the material nature is also this body. It's called kshetra, or the field. Kshetra means field, the field of activities. And it's also called prakriti, or the material energy. And nature, the enjoyer, is the game. There's two games. One is the individual soul who's trying to enjoy, and the other one is the super soul. He's not trying to enjoy. The super soul's not trying to enjoy. He's witnessing, and a lot in certain things according to our adhikar, according to our qualification and desire. And knowledge was the last one. Jnanam. So knowledge is knowledge of the relationship between these two things. And so then, in the first part, we started talking about the field, about the place of activity, how it's made up, how it's constituted, and what its interactions are. And then we went on to talk about the next point, which is the knowledge. What qualities do we learn to imbibe in order that we actually develop knowledge? But what was the first one? Anybody remember? Starts with H. Humility. And the second one was pridelessness. Humility, that's self-evident. Pridelessness means we don't aspire for any position. Because position tends to make us proud. And proud, anyway, we'll not go into that. But so there's 26. I forget how many qualities there are actually. And then after this, it talks about Gyan, knowledge. It spoke about the Gayam, the two observers in this body, the super soul. First, one verse, it talks about the individual soul. And then for 4 or 5 verses, it talks about the super soul. So then we get an understanding of how, how this, how things are working in this world, in this body. Yeah. We learn to see the body is one thing, but we're the soul witnessing that, and there's a sanction, a super soul. So the next verse talks about, next few verses, they speak about, the nature is the cause of the material body, or the nature is the cause of our situation in this world. But the individual soul is a cause of our suffering. It's our desire to enjoy that allows the material energy to work. Yeah. We're given a body suitable. And so basically, we'll also learn in chapter 14 that the soul is not the doer. The doer is a material energy, which is consisting of 3 modes of nature. And this is explained in chapter 13:22. Purusha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti gyan gunam karana gunasangasya sad asat janma yonisu. The living entity, He's traveling through this material world and he's meeting with different situations. And due to that association, he's getting certain results. He's actually, so what that verse is talking about is associating with the material energy in the form of the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So from that verse, it gives a lift to this 14th chapter, or a bridge. Because now we're going to explain, now we know that, we're identifying with situations and becoming, attached to those situations and conditioned by them. We haven't understood how that happens, how these modes do that. Yeah, so 14th chapter starts explaining how the modes work on us. And at the end of the 13th chapter, it talks about if we understand this interaction of the two observers in the body, of the field of activity of the body, and and knowledge, we understand that, then we can get liberation. So this is knowledge. This is why they call it Gyan, this section. And so now we're going to get more knowledge. And so therefore, at the beginning of the 14th chapter, now we can explain knowledge better than what was being explained before. As it goes into more detail. And also because it's not ordinary knowledge, it's transcendental knowledge. That's why it's superior. It's not ordinary things dealing within the modes of nature. Because it says the first two verses, it'll glorify this knowledge. It'll explain what those modes are, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and how they bind us to this world, and also how they can liberate us as well. So that seems a little bit contradictory, doesn't it? So let's. So we'll let Barbara read first. How's that?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, she read that first last time, didn't she? Did you?
Yeah, I wasn't here last week.
Anyway, it's all right.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
So read the first two verses.
Okay. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, again I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to a transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution.
Well, that's number 2, is it?
Pardon.
Just a minute.
Do you want to carry on?
No.
I can't hear very well.
Okay, so the first two verses are glorifying the knowledge. It's the highest knowledge, Parambuya. And that it's and by this knowledge, Param Siddhim Ito Gataha. Gataha means perfect destination. Siddhim means perfection, so the destination is supreme perfection. And then in chapter 2, in text 2, sorry, Idam Gyanam Apashritya. Apashritya means shelter. If we learn this knowledge or take shelter of it, then one can attain Mama Sadaryam Agata. One can attain a body like Krishna's, the same nature as Krishna. And then one becomes free from birth and death. So now we're going to talk about how the jiva contacts the material energy. So read number 3.
Total material substance, called Brahman, is the source of birth, And it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the birth of all living beings, O son of Bharata. It should be understood.
So Mahat Brahman, it says, Mahat means that it's everywhere, it's very powerful, that's material energy. And Brahma means that it's expanding, it's increasing to accommodate the living entities. And and then the next verse gives a little bit more information. Read that one.
It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father.
Right, just a minute.
Material nature consists...
Wait a minute. I'm just going to trying to work out on this computer, it's not working properly. Anyway, I've got a book here, I'll just open the book. 14, let's have a look. Okay, so right, read it. Sarvayonishu Kantaya, Murtaya Sambhavantaya, Tasam Bhama Mahatyoni Aham Bija Pradapitaha. Carry on, read it.
Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes.
Wait a minute, we've gone one step too far. I'm at 4. So yeah, so this 3 and 4, it's talking about how we contact the material, how we're placed into the, this is saying in 4, it's saying how we're actually placed into the, just like you know, there's a union between man and woman, and there's seeds placed by the father into the womb of the mother. So Krishna places the seed of the living entity into the womb of material existence. Krishna's the father, and the material energy is actually the mother. It's not, you know, it's Prabhupada gives the example of rice. You know, sometimes in India, you won't find it in Sheffield, but you know, in the more temperate zones, they have rice. You know, and sometimes scorpions come out of rice, and so we may think that, you know, the rice was born, or the scorpion is born out of rice. But it should be understood that, you know, there's a female scorpion laid her eggs in it. So like that. Okay. And who is that? Who does it? It's Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu. Well, as you say, he glances at material energy, right? And he impregnates the living entities. Okay. So she read 5, which is a new section.
I've got a question, Maharaj.
Go on then.
It says the material energy, material substance called Brahman. But that's the name for the spiritual energy as well, isn't it, Brahman?
Let's have a look.
Or is there like a little accent above it or something?
The total material
Text 3.
substance called Brahman. Yeah.
That's the name for the spiritual energy as well, Brahman, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, they're interchangeable sometimes because ultimately everything's Brahman.
Okay.
You know, everything's coming from Krishna, and it's actually a spiritual energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when we see things like that, we shouldn't be fazed.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually just depends how much we want to reveal. You know, if you're differentiating between the spiritual energy and material energy, you'll use different terms.
Mm.
But he's saying that it's all Brahman, or it's just a different energy. Parasha Shakti Bhavadaiva, Shruyate. It's all, there's many branched.
What's the
Some
literal translation for the word Brahman then?
literal translation.
Yeah, well, what does the word like translate to? I'm just looking now.
Well, unlike you, I haven't got word for word on this one.
Okay.
Brahman is usually, when someone's Brahman realizes the supreme Brahman, which is coming from Krishna's toe,
Mm-hmm.
the Brahman effulgence, everything resting on it. But also coming from that is actually the material energy. It's coming through through Maha Vishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. But because it's coming from those represent, personalities of God, it's actually spiritual. There's nothing material. It's just at different levels of consciousness, that's all. That's hard to get your head around. You don't usually mention that so often, because then it starts becoming a bit complicated. But we can say that there's a material energy which is inert, and the spiritual energy is impregnated into the material energy, and then the inner energy becomes also active. But also, because everything's spiritual, it's just like one spiritual force inside another spiritual force, if we want to see it like that. But then when we start talking like that, it becomes a little complicated. Oh, and then we start asking questions which we don't really need to ask, We get really into it, and therefore we don't go there. Okay. Okay, 5's done. So now we can have Anthony Prabhu. Number 6.
Text 6. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminated, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge.
So from 5 to 9, it'll explain that how the material modes bind the jiva. And so now it's talking about what the peculiarities are of the mode of goodness. Okay.
Text 7.
The previous one explains that the 3 modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and when we're in contact with them, they all bind us, but in different ways. So now we'll hear how they bind us. Mode of goodness conditions one by a sense of happiness and knowledge. Because, there's not so much sinful reaction when we're following the directions of Shastra. That's what they're there for, to help us to subsist in this world without suffering too much. We can't avoid all suffering, but, if we eat in the mode of goodness, we'll not get sick so often. If we eat in the mode of passion or ignorance, we'll get sick and we'll suffer. It's like that. So generally, it's not there's no suffering, but it's relatively freed from that, from suffering. Now we hear about passion. Carry on.
Text 7. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti. And because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive action. Number 8. Son of the
situation, somebody in passion, never satisfied. Always want more, 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 more. Go on. Anybody know the example
of what?
of how that's so? There's an example given in the Gita about fire. When it's cold in the winter, when the cold was down a bit, you put a bit more, and then it flares up again, doesn't it? Put a bit more
Yeah.
coke on or a bit more coal. So that's what it means, is that, you know, the fire of passion is never satisfied by trying to actually, you know, satisfy it by putting more coal on it. It just increases the passion. You know,
Text 8. O son of
you
Bharat,
can, you can read the Sanskrit if you want.
Sanskrit. The thing with the Sanskrit in the book, the English is pretty clear. The Sanskrit writing's a bit faint. You know what I mean? It's not as dark, so it's hard to see.
You think you need a pair of glasses, I think.
Yeah, I've got glasses on, but it's hard to see. So I'm gonna get another different Bhagavadgita with it the same darkness, so I can read it better.
Yeah.
O son of Bharat, I know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul.
So dissatisfaction is passion, and nearly is just, you know, ignorance, inactivity, inertia. So number 9,
Number 9.
maybe we can change readers now.
All right.
Go on, read number 9, then we'll change.
O son of Bharat, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance, covering one's knowledge, binds one to madness.
Yeah. Happiness, passion, fruification, madness. Okay, so the next one, chapter 10, text 10, is how to recognize which mode we're in. By, you know, because there's always competition amongst the modes. Sometimes the mode of passion's there, sometimes goodness is there, sometimes ignorance. Has anybody noticed that? We think it's just, you know, the way it's just the way things are, but it's not. Sometimes, you know, we're like really affected by ignorance. We don't want to do anything. Or we know we're actually very active and we want to, you know, we roll the sleeves up and we want to pull the world in. And then the other one, next time, we're actually a little bit more thoughtful. Okay, so this is called recognizing the prominence of a mode. Because they're like, you know, when I keep bringing this example, electrical engineering, they have 3 phases, and they're yellow, blue, and red, or yellow, black, and red. So that's the modes, isn't it? Yellow is goodness, black is ignorance or blue, and red is passion. So actually, it works the same way. If you get you know, a graph of these electric currents, one current is very high at one particular time. It's maybe, say if it's 240 volts, and then, you know, that'll start to tail off, and coming up, just as that's tailing off, is another mode, or the green phase, and that'll take over, and that'll go up to 2. And then it'll degenerate to 100 volts and go down again. And then then the other one, the ignorant mode, or the red one, will come up, or the blue one. And so it's like, you know, it's showing you how the voltage in each phase is actually different at different times. And sometimes the red phase is full voltage, sometimes the blue phase, sometimes the yellow phase. So that's like it during the day, you know, and during, you know, like in the morning, the yellow phase is up there, and or it should be anyway. Sometimes it don't work, people, you know, I don't get them out of bed for some reason. So more ignorance sometimes it's, you know, it lags on a bit. But, you know, in the morning, we're more fresh. You go out in the morning, have a walk, you know, you feel like on top of the world. then the afternoon, you know, I start to get headache. Everybody's like, phew, too much. And then in the evening, things start to slow down a little bit. Have you noticed? And then, you know, but it's not like, you know, what you do is slow down and you start, the mind, you know, the mind becomes surcharged with ignorance. So we start watching, you know, Coronation Street, things like that. Is that still going, by the way? Is it? Oh. I don't know now. It's been going since about 1961, that. 1960, right?
Okay.
Okay, what mode is it Coronation Street in then?
Transcendental goodness.
They've got
Wow.
electricity now in street.
It's been going since 1960. It started. Yeah, I don't watch it. I've got no telly. Got rid of the telly about 20 years ago, so I don't know what's happening on the street now.
No.
Just as well.
There's one guy still in it from the first episode.
Was that Albert Tatlow?
But what? He's well gone. It's Ken Barlow, isn't it? Who's left?
Yeah.
Ken Barlow, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's 90 odd.
He must be old.
He's 92.
Anyway, listen, everybody's come to life now. Now I was talking about Coronation Street. I'm going to get talking about Bhagavadgita. So, right, we're talking about recognition of modes. So, yeah, Anthony, you've just been reading. So now we'll have Don.
Yeah. Pronto. Text 10. Rajastamascha maya sattvam bhavati parat. Rajasattvam tamascheva tamasattvam rajastata. Sometimes the mode of passion becomes prominent, defeating the mode of goodness or samabharata. And sometimes the mode of goodness defeats passion. And at other times the mode of ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy. Text 11. Savadharishum tehasmin prakasha upajarite ganam yaratada vidyat vivridam sattvamiti uta. The manifestations of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. Text 12. Lobha pravritya arambaha kamanam asama spriha rajasyante jayante vivrite bharata shirishtava. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, uncontrollable desire, hankering, and intense endeavor develop. 13. Aprakasho pravritischa pramado mohaivacha tamasyanti jayante vivride kulunandana. O son of Kuru, when there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, madness, illusion, inertia, and darkness are manifested. 14.
Okay, so a new section now. That's still the symptoms. Yeah, I have to recognize the symptoms of those modes. So next is 14.
I've got a question, Maharaj.
Okay.
What on earth does text 11 mean?
What does it mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
how am I supposed to know when all the gates of my body are illuminated with knowledge? What does that even mean?
Ask them. No, I mean, it's like, you know, if you actually eat in the mode of goodness, sleep in the, you know, you follow the rules of Shastra, how to do things properly, then they'll work properly. You know what I mean? But when we become too passionate, we don't actually use them properly, and therefore, you know, it says that you know, we actually put ourselves into a difficulty For eating, if we eat in the mode of goodness, we won't eat things which are too hot. We'll eat things which are good for the body.
Okay.
And therefore, the digestion will be okay. But if, it will pass stool nicely and everything. And we just eat the right amount in a balanced way and not too often, just enough so you can digest like that. That's the mode of goodness. But if in the mode of passion, you just ram it in, then there won't be the same effects in the body. So the body won't work in the mode of goodness. It's like that. And if you eat too much chili, for instance, with mode of passion, you'll just like finish up having ulcers,
Okay, yeah, and I suppose with the eyes, it means you'll see things as they are, and you'll hear things as they are, and all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you eat too many chilies, your eyes will run, won't they? So, yeah, hearing the proper things, hearing Sri Mad Bhagavatam instead of, something else, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, where am I now? 14. Yeah, Don read to 13, is that right?
Yeah.
So maybe this for 14 is the effects of the conditionings of those modes, how they affect us. So maybe Sita Thakurani can read that.
Sorry, I'm using this because I can't see the book. It's too faint, it's true. Yada sattve pravride tu pralayam yatideha brit tadotama vidam lokam amalam pratipadyate. When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets. 15. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma savishu jayate tata pralinas tamasi buddha yonish jayate. When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. When he dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom.
So we have to understand that properly. Passion doesn't mean we just wantonly enjoy. It means we enjoy according to Shastra, and we give charity at a suitable place. But we want to enjoy the results. If we don't do that, then it's a mode of ignorance. We just actually acting indiscriminately. And then mode of ignorance means that, we just act like an animal, more or less. We don't control the senses. We don't do anything properly. And, people sometimes say, I want to be a dog in my next life, because dogs seem to be laid about all over the place, they're not doing anything. So that's also ignorance. And yeah, goodness, read, might as well, what's left to read now is Jai Krishna, isn't there? So read 16 to 18 as well, that's results of action in those modes. 14 to 15 is the destination we go, and now 16 to 18 is the result. It'll include the destination sometimes as well.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Karmana sukrita syat sattvikam nirmalam palam rajasa tu palam dukham ajnanam tamasa palam. By acting in the mode of goodness, one becomes purified. Works done in the mode of passion result in distress, and actions performed in the mode of ignorance result in foolishness. I'm trying to get to the... Sorry. Carry on. 17. Sattva sanjayate jnanam rajasoloba evacha pramada moha tamaso prabhavato jnanam evacha. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, grief develops. And from the mode of ignorance, foolishness, madness, and illusion develop. 18. Urdhvam gachanti sattvasta madhyatishtanti rajasaha jaganya guna vritti sta adho gachanti tamasa. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upwards to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds.
Okay. So, you know, some people, they may not know what mode they're in. You know, when we're in a particular mode, unless, actually, if we read the Bhagavadgita, we might get some idea. That's what it's there for, to wake us up. Yes, you know, I didn't know I was in mode of ignorance and passion before, you know, before I read Bhagavad-Gita. And then when I started reading it, I was actually interested to find out which mode I were in. But I was disappointed, actually, when I read it. So now the next section is, we'll go right to the end. Now we've understood how the modes work and the effects of the modes and the destination in the modes. Now we should feel inspired to, you know, at least work in the mode of goodness, but try and even get out of that. So this 19 to 27 is talking about how to transcend the modes. Because it's called Gyan Yoga, this is not talking about activity like in Karma Yoga, or so much necessarily devotion like in Bhakti Yoga. It's talking about, you know, understanding what to do. So this is called Gyan. Of course, in the purports, Prabhupada will always bring it to Bhakti, but he's talking about Gyan. We have to develop knowledge and then we can make choices. So here, chapter 19 talks, text 19 talks about, you know, we have to see that we're actually in an awkward position, that we're not actually doing anything. You know, it's difficult to understand that. But, you know, what's happening is the modes are pushing the mind and intelligence and the body. And if we identify with any of those three, then we're conditioned. We think we're doing it. But actually, we should be an observer, understanding that this is how I'm conditioned. You know, I can't change my mode, but let me use it to serve Krishna, that's all. And then that becomes a transcendental activity. And so we're learning to see that we're not doing anything. That's Gyan, that we've been affected by our past karma. We may make a decision, but that decision is like to do something one way in the mode of ignorance, or to do it another way in the mode of ignorance, that's all. You know what I mean? It's if we've got a bit of if we're a bit more in the mode of goodness, we develop a little bit of discrimination, but we're still discriminating whether to remain bound in the mode of, you know, by the modes we're in, we'll remain bound in whatever natural choices the mind will make due to its conditioning, not us. But we, you know, when we have knowledge, and especially if we get transcendental knowledge about Bhakti, then we can actually make a change. That we can start to choose to carry on in the modes or to get out of them by devotional service. Okay, so Jai Krishna Prabhu.
Number 19, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nanyam gunebhyam kataram yada drastan upasyati gunebhyascha param veti mad bhavam so digachati. When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. Text 20. gunan etan atitiyatrin dehi deha samud bhavan janma mrityu jara dukair vimukto munitam ashnute. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Text 21.
What number is that? 21.
Sorry?
Yeah, so then when we hear the results of that, we've just heard that we can enjoy nectar in the next life if we overcome the modes of nature. So next we'll be asking, how does one do it? Yeah, that's the next question.
Okay, I'll carry on.
Carry on.
Text 21. Arjuna uvacha kahi lingastrin guna etan atito bhavati prabho kim achara katam chetams tringunana ativratate. Arjuna inquired, my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature? Oh, good grief, look at this. Text 22 to 25. Sri Bhagavadgita prakasham cha pravitim cha moham eva cha pandava nadveshi sampravritani na nivritani kankashti udashina vad asino gune yo na vichalyate guna vatanta ityevam yo vatishtati nengate sama dukkha sukha svastaha sama lustasma kanchana tulya priya priyo diras tulya nindama samstruti mana pomanan yos tulyas tulyo mrityari pakshya yo savaramba parityagi gunatita sa uchyate. That was a mouthful. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, or delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral to transcendental knowledge. And transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regard alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal towards the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honour and dishonour, who treats alike both friends and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature.
Well, that's what the symptoms are. He's not attached to anything. And how do we do that? How would we do that in devotional service?
Just remain fixed in kind of devotional life.
Anyway, I put the cart before the horse. That's the wrong question, actually. But we're talking about symptoms. So now we got what is his behavior? This is it. the next point. What that's also in this verse. What is his behavior? That's explained in the purport. And what is his last one is in the next verse. What is the process of transcending the modes? Let's have a look here. Just read this purport a little bit. When he is actually out of the body, when a living entity stays in the material world embodied by the material body, it is to be understood that he is under the control of one of the three modes of material nature. When he is actually out of the body, then he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature. But as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. He should engage himself in devotional service of the Lord so that his identity with the material body will automatically be forgotten. In other words, we remain steady even though happiness comes, distress comes. And this is the first instruction of the Bhagavadgita. We just have to tolerate our material conditioning and get on with our devotional life. And by focusing on service to Krishna, actually, we're not in bodily consciousness, we're in service to Krishna consciousness. And so if we're doing that, if we're in that consciousness at the end of life, service to Krishna, automatically we're not, in bodily consciousness. The body may get push and pull. We may have certain things like eating, we need to eat, we need to drink, we need to, so many things, but, we're in Krishna consciousness, so we're not really absorbing the body, you know what I mean? Because we're always thinking that we're doing everything so I can do service to Krishna nicely. We're nuts. Well, what am I thinking about now? It's not, you just can't do that, can you?
I was just going to say, Maharaj, when I lived in the temple, all the brahmacharis would run around like really busy, and I can't be in the mode of ignorance. This is actually against what this is saying, isn't it? And it was a whole big thing. Everyone had to stay busy, otherwise they're in the mode of ignorance.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we have to be a little bit patient, and we have to be able to, live together without causing too much, competition. In other words, we're tolerant, and we realize that we're not perfect, but we just keep trying to absorb ourselves in the process. And that, Krishna's in the heart. When he sees the mood of a devotee who's trying, then he said in Bhagavad Gita, he makes up the difference. You know what I mean? So actually, if we're too much in thinking we're in control, it'll be difficult to be Krishna conscious, because part of Krishna consciousness is to realize we're not in control. We're actually, Krishna, the material energy is in control, but Krishna is actually in control of the material energy. And so, we're in a prayerful mood in everything we do to actually ask for protection and guidance. And this is the difficulty, is actually remembering that, because we're trained in the material world to think we're the doers of everything, and unless you do it, you're a failure. So, we have to become a little bit humble without being too dependent either. We don't just put, plonk everything on Krishna and, take rest. You know what I mean? We have to be balanced, and so, you can't do that. Ignorance, Prabhu. Okay. Well, where were we now? We're on 22. Let's have a look. Next one.
26, I think, Maharaj.
Yeah. So this is explained that we transcend the modes. This is a very famous verse. Mancho yo abhya vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samatijate brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all conditions, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So Prabhupada said, you know, if we're fully engaged in devotional service, we're in the transcendental position. If we body iha yasha harer dashe, kamana manasagira. Kama means work, manasa mind, and gira words. Work, body, mind, and words are engaged in Krishna's service. Then we're transcendental. And so it talks about Brahman again. We come to the spiritual platform. So Brahman's used in a different context here. So we'll find that. Also, you know, it said Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yoga Maya Samamrita. And it's Yoga Maya is the internal energy of the Lord, which covers the devotees. So he forgets Krishna's position, so he can relate to Krishna as an equal or as a son or as a lover. Or but in that verse, it uses the word Yoga Maya to talk about how the conditioned soul is in Maya. So, you know, but then you have to realize that actually it's the same energy. It's just actually working in different ways, that's all. One's covering us completely, so we forget all about Krishna, we can enjoy material energy. And one's covering our Krishna's position. We don't forget Krishna, but we forget his position, that's all. It's the same energy. Well, it's not the same. You know what I mean? It's the same. It's like a chinchi beda beda tadva. Everything's Krishna's energy, but it has its different qualities. Certain energies act in a certain way by Krishna's desire. And the last one, it talks about, I come to, you know, comes to the level of Brahman. So this is talking about impersonal understanding. And I am the basis, it says, Brahmano hi pratistaham amritat vaya kalpate shashvatasya chidharmasya sukhasya kantikasya cha. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So this is not Krishna consciousness. I'm sure if we read the purport, Prabhupada will relate it to Krishna consciousness. But it's talking about Brahman realization. Immortal. What's the difference between immortal, imperishable, and eternal? Go on. We've got any English scholars?
Immortal means you were born, and so you die.
Eh?
And eternal, you haven't been born, so you can't die.
Eternal, yeah, means that there's no death. It has no beginning and no end. And imperishable means that it doesn't talk about the beginning, does it? It talks about it can't perish. It can't actually cease to exist. And then immortal means that it's talking about a living entity, isn't it? The other two may not be talking about a living entity. Like, you know, a piece of wood can be eternal and it can be imperishable, but immortal means that there's no death. So there. Okay, any questions or comments? So you'll all be transcending the modes.
I have a question, and it goes back to the big verse there, you know, around 21, 25, when he says, one who is equal towards the desirable and the undesirable. Okay, you might try to get to the mode of goodness, but if you are equal to the desirable and the undesirable, how do you stop yourself being completely, what was the word I wrote? You start completely indifferent to everything.
Neutral.
Yes. Oh, you have to be neutral, but then
That's
can you
what
be
answered it.
indifferent? You could be indifferent
Eh?
to other people suffering, or indifferent to, okay, the rich, I don't care, but
Okay.
the poor, I care.
Okay, I'll return to 264 in the Bhagavadgita. Right? You got it?
Yeah.
Raga dvesha vimuktantu vishayan indriyashcharan atma vishya videyatma prasadam adhigachati. He says, but a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through the regulative principles of freedom can attain the complete mercy of the Lord. What are those regulative principles of freedom? For us, it's 4 regulative principles, isn't it? They actually liberate us from material attachment by following them. But we still may be attached to them, but we don't. We follow those principles, even though the desire's there. So that's the key: is that desires will come to us, and that's explained in 71. Desires may come like a river. Many rivers flow into the ocean, but the ocean doesn't become affected. So desires are going to come, but one who's in knowledge and strong in Krishna consciousness, he doesn't let them affect him. He carries on with his devotional service. So, because he knows, if in the purport it says, how does he do that? And it says that let's have a look. It says, although the person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the sensual plane, because of his being Krishna conscious, he has no attachment for sensual activities. The Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment and detachment. If Krishna wants, the devotee can do anything which ordinarily is ordinarily undesirable for him to do. And if Krishna does not want, he shall not do that which he would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. Therefore, to act or not to act is within his control, because he acts only under the direction of Krishna. This consciousness is a causeless mercy of the Lord, which the devotee can achieve in spite of being attached to the sensual platform. When we connect with Krishna, we get strength to do that. That's why we chant the Hare Krishna mantra. If we're not contacting with Krishna, we won't be able to do it. We can make choices. That's what, because we're following these regulative principles. We can choose not to do it, but a materialist cannot. They're going to do it. Okay. So thank you for joining.
Thank you, Maharaj.
And we'll see you next week. Any questions before we go?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yeah.